Like our content? It's funded by viewers like you. Please consider becoming a sustaining supporter of New Church Live today.
Have you here today. I'm Pastor Chuck Blair, and whether you're joining us, I know we have somebody joining us today from Budapest. We have somebody joining us today from Madrid. We have some folks out in Las Vegas, as well as folks in Pittsburgh, as well as our wonderful studio audience here. It's great to have you on board today as we celebrate Easter. And it's a beautiful day just for celebration. And it's such an interesting story, this Easter story, because every year we re-enter it. And every year, the meaning in it grows. And we come at it every year sort of hoping to pull some new kinds of meaning, with at the same time touching these themes that are ancient. I mean, this story on this day has been repeated literally for over 2,000 years. Just think about that for a minute. And today, the theme is pretty basic. And it's really important not just to leave it as, well, that sounds nice, but to really think, well, what does this mean in our lives? Like, how can we continue to go on? Because that's the way Jesus wants us. Jesus wants us to learn these stories, to understand these stories, to see in these stories. I mean, Jesus is living it up here, we're living it down here. But to see in these stories a way that we can live our lives moving forward. And today, the message is pretty simple. God is not afraid of the dark. God is simply not afraid of the dark. He joins us in that. He joins us in the worries, the concerns, even the despair of those times. We're going to see that in this story. But today, Easter Sunday, we celebrate the light. We celebrate what comes after a season of waiting and a season that is difficult. And so much of faith is being able to hold that story and to be able to go, oh yeah, this, and this is beautiful, and this is how it works. Now, before COVID and the internet took off and all of those things, what we would do on Easter is we'd have these seeds, we'd have these bulbs that we would give to everybody who was joining us for Easter. And these bulbs, there was a special kind of bulb, and no offense, please, but these bulbs sort of looked a little bit like poop. But the amazing part of these bulbs is when you look at it, I mean, faith is looking at something like that and going like, oh, that's a flower. Or looking at an acorn and saying, oh, that's a tree. And that's why we hold these stories so dear to our heart, because these are stories, this is God's story. And in an echo of that, it's our story as well. The story of death, waiting, and resurrection. So friends, I want to welcome you today to Easter. And it's interesting to start out with like this idea that God's just not afraid of the dark. He just isn't afraid of the dark. Like last week, we did a service. It was on the washing of feet, Last Supper. If you're unfamiliar with those, you can go back and watch the service from last week. But there's this beautiful part of it as Jesus is going around, he's washing the disciples' feet, which was the posture of a servant. It's what a servant would do. And Jesus is saying, like, you got to learn to do this. You got to learn to serve other people with no idea of what you get out of it, nothing transactional to it. And Jesus is doing this. And in that group of 12, as is well known, there are people there, some disciples who really get it and some disciples who don't. Welcome to our world. You know, he washes Judas's feet. Judas betrays him, as many of you know, to the Roman authorities. He washes Peter's feet. Peter denies that he even knows the Lord. And then there's Thomas the doubter. And those were just 3 of the 12. And no doubt the other ones had their stuff too. But what's amazing as we were getting ready for Easter this year was looking at this. And here's Jesus, and he's washing these feet. And this is happening on Thursday night. And he's washing the feet of everyone. And then as soon as he's done washing Judas's feet and then Peter's feet, and he's telling Peter, like, look, you're going to deny me 3 times. And then he offers this stunningly beautiful piece of scripture. Let's take a look at that. This is what he offers. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the place to the way I am going, to where I'm going. It's this beautiful juxtaposition. It's this beautiful memory again and again that Jesus is not afraid of the dark. And it's this beautiful reminder as well. And this is one, friends, I'm going to ask you to really listen carefully, because this is so much part of the Easter message. It's this stubborn insistence that our lives are held in love. It's stubborn insistence that our lives are held in love. One could even define that as Christianity. The stubborn insistence that our lives are held in love. Even when we make mistakes, even when we make the tragic mistakes that were made, Jesus is still saying there's a stubborn insistence that all our lives are held with love, which means love ultimately, despite all appearances, has the last word. And welcome with that to Easter. And so much of it, friends, to put it very simply, it's not about God changing his mind about us, but about us changing our mind about God. It's not some sort of sacrificial thing. It's really showing this view of God that was different and was so much more powerful and so much more loving. And it's where we see Jesus saying, now I call you friends. This is a clip, a still scene from The Chosen. That's Jesus there on the left. It's Peter there on the right. I think that's the image. That's what God desires to be seen as. Not as up here on top, not as wrathful, but as it even in our mistakes, even there, being able to just very gently say, do not let your hearts be troubled. You know the way. You know the way forward. And today we celebrate this week. We celebrate that way forward. So with that, friends, welcome. Welcome to New Church Live.
My family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light, I am not the mistakes I have made, or any of the things that caused me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light, I am light. I am light, I am light. I am light, I am light. I am not the color of my eyes. I
What an incredibly beautiful song. And as we say a lot, like in this light that we see, and we see this light looking like it's dimmed, but the light always being there, and then the light growing as we celebrate on Easter. Say this a lot, again, no amount of darkness ever extinguishes light. Any amount of light begins to extinguish darkness. And that's what we're going to look at this week. And again, friends, like read it, hear it in two ways. Hear it as this beautiful story of transcendence, beautiful story about the Lord's glorification, about the divine human, all these big theological concepts. And also know at the same time as you hear this story that we all walk through our own Easters. We all do. And what are the lessons, and how do we, in our own very imperfect human way, try to do the best we can, even in circumstances that are difficult, finding joy and celebration, which is what we do on Easter Sunday. So join me just in a quick walk through this week. The week of Easter, it starts Thursday, the beautiful Passover, and Jesus, and he gathers his disciples, and it's this beautiful dinner. This beautiful Passover, beautiful marking of a wonderful Jewish tradition, and breaking of bread and sharing of wine, and all these different readings and all these different thoughts. And then Jesus washes their feet. And Jesus says really clearly, like, oh, I've so wanted to do this with you. And it's fascinating because he knows the rest of the week is coming when he does it. No talk of vengeance. No talk of anger. No talk of the basic human response, which is fight or flight. It's courage. True courage. Courage that takes a stand. Courage that anchors itself and grounds itself in what is real, what is true, what is meaningful, what lasts. And we see that in all of Jesus' life as he comes more and more into his divine nature. And then the story shifts later on when Jesus is arrested later on at night. And again, isn't it interesting, right? Like so much of the Christmas story, so much of the Easter story, it occurs at night. And that's a very deep poetic truth. And Jesus is held on trial, and he's held sort of two ways. There's a religious trial and a civil trial. We're talking the land of Israel, modern-day Israel. It's occupied by the Romans. They're the civil authorities. The Jewish religious clergy are there, the religious authorities. And what happens is Jesus is brought before the religious authorities, and they convicting him of blasphemy, of saying that he's king of, and he's God, and all these things, saying all these things. And then he gets involved the civil authorities, the Romans. Because the Jewish leaders did not have the power to execute someone, the Roman authorities did. And that's where we pick up the story as part of that trial. And there's so many fascinating parts of the trial that we could take a look at. And it's interesting because Jesus gets brought before this governor, Pontius Pilate. And Pontius takes a look at it, and Pontius just can't seem to find what's going on. Can't quite seem to find the crime, so to speak. Like he's hearing Jesus, and he's hearing Jesus talk, and no doubt he would have heard about Jesus. And there was nothing about him that wanted to be an earthly king. As a matter of fact, a little biblical aside, Palm Sunday, which we celebrated last Sunday, Palm Sunday, in a line that rarely gets preached on. Unfortunately, Jesus is welcomed back with palms and hosannas and welcomed back as a king. And then he cries at the end of it because he's realizing they're not getting that my kingdom is not of this world. It's the kingdom of the Spirit, the kingdom of our souls, the kingdom of our hearts. And that's where we pick up the story here. He's in front of Pontius Pilate and says when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. And we see here, friends, like Jesus so clear, he was just at a very pragmatic level, he knew that it was no matter what was said, that the verdict, etc., was a conclusion. They already knew what was going to happen. This was what we would call a show trial, if we were to use modern day language. And we see there, I think in a way, a stubborn insistence that our lives are held in love. It's just this stubborn insistence that's not going to try to confront everything, because we've already lived lives that have made a stand around everything that matters. We've lived it so clearly that our lives, in a way, become a testimony. Now, that is not easy to do. And Jesus does it in this incredibly powerful and beautiful way. And then we see this line, and it's a line that we actually use in our thank you, Tina. You see this in this beautiful, beautiful line that we see, which is where Pontius Pilate says, washes his hands. And you probably have heard that line, well, like, I'm just going to wash my hands of it. That actually comes from Pontius Pilate. Don't ever use that as a quote, by the way. It's not good. In Pontius Pilate, this is what that line was about. It's a beautiful, beautiful line about just human nature, how human nature works. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. I'm innocent of this man's blood. It is your responsibility. It is your responsibility. So that's the trial. Pontius essentially washes his hands of it, says, I got nothing to do with this. You do what you want. What they wanted is they didn't want Jesus there. They didn't want all he represented. And it's interesting, right? Like, why would that be? Well, it's because that kind of love is disruptive. It is disruptive to our lives, and it can feel challenging. But again, it's the kingdom of the Spirit. It's the kingdom of the Spirit. So let's hop back into the story. So then we hit Friday, what's called Good Friday, and that's done as a juxtaposition. Good Friday, so Jesus, and I won't go into all the details because they're very sad. But Jesus is tortured essentially, stripped, marched up, crucified, executed on a cross with two other men, two other thieves. One of them is called the good thief. And that's where we pick up, friends, again, the story about Jesus' character. It's interesting with Jesus, right? He's on the cross, which was a horrible way to die, And what he does is he says these lines, and these lines again and again. Some of them are very much, we mentioned this last week, some of them are very much like human and very much like, oh yes, this is that divine human, this is the human part of that equation. My God, why have you forsaken me? It's interesting, one of my personal favorite theologians of all time is Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who died in a concentration camp during World War II. Amazing, fascinating man who did a lot of amazing things in the world. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer said that was the line that allowed him to be a Christian. Because it says that life does have suffering in it. And it does have struggle. And it does have moments where we're like, oh, God, where are you? And it also has moments like this. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. That line, it's hard to put the words around it that somehow anchor the gravity of that line. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do or they don't know what they're doing. We started out by saying, Jesus was not afraid of the dark. Like he clearly is saying, darkness is part of life. God is clearly saying, darkness is part of life. And at the same time, within that, here's Jesus saying, you can be in the dark, but not become the darkness. You can walk through the darkness and not become that thing. And he's not just saying it in like an accusatory way. in a way, he's reminding all of us about who we truly are. He was reminding those people about who they truly were. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. And what we see there, friends, is we see this holding, this stubborn insistence again. This stubborn insistence that our lives are held in love. This stubborn insistence that we are holding, and we are to hold life in love. And that's where we get to the light. If one were to explain, the power of the cross, and it's such a beautiful image, the power, I think, and again, so many ways we could look at it, the power, I think, is this. It's where Jesus says, yes, there is this stubborn insistence that all of life, all of us are held in love, and that there's a certain joy and a certain peace and a certain hope that goes right along with that. When you really allow in that we are all held in love all the time. And it's like a set of dominoes. One year for Easter, what I did, I literally set up dominoes here on stage, because I think that's what it's like. Hard things happen. And then oftentimes there's a set of dominoes that you have the bad event and you have something really hard happen. And so what gets to our mind is how to pay people back, or how to have vengeance, or how we can finally score one for the good guys, or how we can finally punish and judge. And here's Jesus saying in a very beautiful way, no. Drawing a line right here and saying all those things extinguish the light. And that what we're going to do is we're going to make a stand. We're going to make a stand, an insistent hope, an insistent stand, a stubbornness to stand in that place no matter what. And as the musicians come out here, start to think about what occurs on the other side of that. What does that resurrection look like? How does this make it all possible? Because that sacred no is so important. As we move into resurrection, as we move into the idea that the Lord is risen, as we move into this much bigger, incredible yes of Easter.
It's a funny thing. Whenever I give it, it comes back to me. And it's wonderful to be, even with my whole heart, as my heart receives your love. Oh, ain't it nice tonight we've got each other. And I am beside you, more than just a partner or a lover. I'm your friend when you love someone. Your heartbeat beats so loud when you love someone. Your feet can't feel the ground. Shining stars all seem to congregate around your face when you love someone. It comes back to you. And love, it's a funny thing. It's making my blood flow with energy. And it's like an awakened dream. 'Cause what I've been wishing for is happening. And it's right on time. Oh, ain't it nice this life we've got each other. And I am right beside you, more than just a partner or a lover. I'm your friend when you love someone. Your heartbeat beats so loud when you love someone. Your feet can't feel the ground. Shining stars all seem to congregate around your face when you love someone. It comes back to you. We're gonna give ourselves to love tonight. Lift him up to touch the skylight, and we will savor every second we suspend together, you and I will. You and I will. You and I Cause when you love someone, your heartbeat beats so loud. When you love someone, your feet can't feel the ground. Shining stars all seem to congregate around your face when you love someone. It comes back to you.
Another amazingly beautiful song. So let's step back over here and just how important this is. And that song they just sang, about love. And it's interesting, right? All these really difficult things, all these dominoes that are falling. And here's Jesus saying, it stops here. With love, not with blame or victimhood or anything, just it stops right here. And the last domino, one could argue that he had to stop, was this domino. And it can come from a good place. It was the domino that said, it's all hopeless. It's all hopeless. Jesus even stops that. And it's this beautiful reminder that love has the last word. Love always has the last word. Not afraid of the dark, willing to move through it, just like this week. In this stubborn insistence, in this clear groundedness, and that love has the last word. And I'm not talking just love as a feeling. Love is like unicorns and rainbows, as we talked about last week, but love as a true force that changes the world. See, flowers, thank you for this flower, Tina. Flowers are such a beautiful way to celebrate it. Beautiful way to celebrate Easter. And all seeds are planted here. I'm going to ask the audience to say it. All seeds are planted in thee, begins with D, ends with ark. All seeds are planted in the dark. All seeds are planted in the dark. There's a lot of spiritual wisdom just in that simple part of life and that understanding that all seeds are planted in the dark. And that's where we pick up the story. So Jesus dies on Good Friday, and then Saturday is the Sabbath, the Jewish holy day. It was a day of rest. And so that meant that when Jesus gets buried, he gets buried in a tomb in the side of a rock face, and they roll a big stone in front of it. And when he gets buried, people can't do anything about it. Like, there's just a period of mourning and just a period of waiting. And that's a whole sermon in and of itself. Again, if we were to talk amongst our audience, some of you are just in a place where you're just waiting. You're sort of between both worlds. You haven't sensed resurrection yet. You feel like you've moved past something that's really hard. And you haven't quite sensed that life anew. That's what I think this Saturday thing is. It's just this waiting. They also serve, as the Bible says, who simply stand and wait. Because this is about God's time, not about ours, which is really hard given how Amazon works. Because that's just not how spirituality goes. It's just not how it goes. No same-day delivery. And so we wait, and you think about that anxious waiting that they would have experienced. And then we hit this beautiful part of resurrection, and this is from Matthew 28. I'm going to read this for you. After the Sabbath, which was Saturday, at dawn on the first day of the week. Now, a little aside, that's why the Christians moved, the holy day for Christians is Sunday versus Saturday, just because they wanted it to be the first day of the week, not the last day of the week. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. And there's so much you could look at with what it means to roll back the stone. The angel's appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were as white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid." An aside, say this all the time. Number one command in the Bible over 300 times is do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. For I know you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He is risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he is risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you. And again, picture this angel. I mean, this angel must have been quite something to see, like appearance like lightning and white robe and everything, but there's this gentleness of like, don't be afraid. He's not here anymore. He's not caught up in all of this anymore. He's not in pain and worry and despair anymore. He is risen. Go and tell his followers. So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell the disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him and clasped his feet and worshiped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid." Big shocker there that he would say that. "Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. They will see me there." And there's some lines here that just every year different lines jump out in different ways. And one of them is this line, afraid yet filled with joy. How many of us have had that experience? We're like, we live life and we're both afraid and we're filled with joy. It's this both and all the time. This fear and this joy going together. Because that's so much part of life, and that's so much of the human condition is this fear and this joy commingling all the time. And then we have this beautiful phrase from Jesus, and for this particular gospel account, it's just real simple. It's just one word where Jesus says, "Greetings." And I think here, friends, like imagine Easter. Like here, Jesus has moved through all this, and now he's moved on to this other thing. And he just says greetings. And just picture for yourself. Just take a breath. Picture how he would say that. Picture what his face would look like saying that. In Miracle of Miracles, that's what heaven is going to be like. That is going to be Jesus saying greetings. With that same tone you just imagined, with that same face you just thought of. And the passage goes on beautifully, and it's where Jesus says, "Do not be afraid, go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." Again, referring to them as brothers, which is a beautiful, again, Jesus treating all as family. Incredibly beautiful. And the resurrection story, at this moment, like it has this big picture thing and this small, the macro and the micro. The macro is this beautiful concept known as the divine human. From the book True Christianity, God became human and a human became God in one person. That's the divine human, the glorification process, as they would say. And that's big theology up here. It's important. The world would not exist if that had not happened. Hell would have won. Like there's all kinds of deep theology we can look at there. And that deep theology is incredibly important. And we want to look at that at the macro, but then we also want to get down to the micro. And that's the simple idea that this is our story too. This is our story too. With it being our story as well, like again, it doesn't put us up on a pedestal at all. This is God saying, this is the journey that we all go through in life. Again, at a much lower level, but it's a journey that we all go through over and over and over again. And I love the idea that Jesus is saying, in a way, at a macro, this is who I am. And then with this kindness and this compassion and this joy, we see him coming down to a level and saying, and remember, this is who you are. This is who you are. Using his words, you are the light of the world. Don't put it under a bushel. Let that light shine. Shine so it illuminates life for others. Shine so that it shows the good works of God. Let that light shine. Don't be afraid of the darkness. Live with this stubborn, and there are people here who I just know need to hear this. I know you need to hear it. Please let it in. Live with this stubborn insistence that despite any appearances, you are held in love. And that love has the last word. You have a light. Let it shine. Easter, in closing, is such an incredibly powerful thing. And it's interesting, when you look at it. I mean, I used to be a history teacher, so you look at it historically, it was the big holiday. And now, of course, Christmas is the big holiday because it involves gifts. But this involves gifts too. It involves gifts of memory. It involves gifts of reminders. This story every year, somehow seems to bring more and more meaning and more light and more love. And I think more and more as we look at times that at times can feel a little dark and can feel a little challenging, we need to be reminded of that. We need to be reminded of walking through life and what is it that you can truly offer? What is it that you can truly bring? And what God is asking you to do is do that. Bring that. Live life. Live the light. As Jesus would say so beautifully, you are my friends. Go forth. Amen. And now, friends, what we're going to do is we're going to have a closing with a little prayer. We're going to do a blessing, and then we're going to have a little upbeat music to close out the service today. So please join me. Lord, on this Easter day, we join you in a spirit of deep celebration. A celebration, Lord, filled with joy and hope and peace. A celebration, Lord, because maybe in some way we're reminded again and again of how you held on to love through really dark times, how you held on to love to show us a path to do the same. And you did it with that stubborn insistence, that going forth, not afraid of the dark, that leaning in, not leaning back. Help us, Lord, in our human ways, which are always imperfect at best, to try to follow that way in our own broken manner, to try to be those kinds of people, to try to become Christians not just in word or in creed, but actually done in the deeds of our life, in the manner with which we treat others, from our spouses to our partners, to our siblings, to our children, to our community, to our world. And thank you, Lord. Thank you for Easter. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for what you were willing to do for us, your children. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. Happy Easter, friends.
Die and you lay me to rest, going up to the place that's the best. When you laid me down to die, going up to the spirit in the sky. Spirit in the sky is where I'm gonna go when I die. When they lay me down to die, I'm going up to the spirit in the sky. Oh, prepare yourself. No, it's a must. Gotta have a friend in Jesus. So you know that when you die, he's gonna recommend you to the spirit in the sky. Oh, recommend you to the spirit in the sky. It's where I'm gonna go when you die. When you die and you lay you to rest, you're gonna go to the place that's the best. Never been a sinner, I've never sinned. I have a friend in Jesus. So you know that when you die, he's gonna set me up with the Spirit in the sky. Set me up with the Spirit in the sky. It's where I'm gonna go when I die. When I die and you lay me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. I'm gonna go to the place that's